there is nothing as typhoid and malaria. If you have any symptom of any illness whatsoever, you have headache, you have feeling of tiredness, and you don't even understand your body system any longer, you should speak to your doctor.
Hello, amazing viewers. You're welcome to another interesting and exciting episode of the Healthy, Happy Human Show. My name is Cyril Aloysius, and I'm super excited to be your host on the show for today. So today's topic is going to be typhoid fever. That is what we are discussing on the show for today. And with me, I've got here on the studio someone very knowledgeable enough to talk to us and inform us, educate us on the topic. And she'll be introducing herself in a minute from now. Hello, madam. You're welcome to join us. What's your name?
Thank you very much. I am Dr. Stella Ozumba.
Dr. Stella, you're welcome.
Thank you.
So Dr. Stella and I are going to be, talking more on the typhoid fever subject. So I would like to know, Dr. Stella, a lot of us don't really understand or know what it means to have typhoid fever. So I'd like you to educate us on what does the word typhoid fever mean and how can one contract it?
All right, thank you. Typhoid fever, also known as enteric fever. It's a life-threatening illness that is transmitted through contaminated food or water.
Okay.
So when one ingests contaminated food or water that contains the bacterium Salmonella typhi, the bacterium spreads in the system and multiplies, then is distributed into the bloodstream, and the person begins to manifest the symptoms of typhoid fever.
Interesting. I just learned one now. So I'd like to know, what is the mortality rate of typhoid fever?
Okay. As at 2019, there was an estimate of 9 million cases annually, and out of these 9 million cases, we had about 110,000 deaths from typhoid fever, and it is because the disease affects people that lack access to good water and good sanitation, and children are at higher risk of contracting this disease.
That's another one that we've learned. Children are at higher risk of contracting this infection. All right, but you know that it's possible for humans to actually walk around without knowing, especially adults, without knowing that they have this disease. So I'd like you to tell us, inform us, educate us, how can one know that he or she has typhoid fever?
Okay. Like we said, that typhoid fever is a life-threatening infection. You can only walk around with typhoid fever asymptomatic if you are a long-term carrier. But for an acutely infected person, you are going to manifest symptoms like prolonged high fever, also called a stepladder fever.
Stepladder fever?
Yes.
Okay.
It's classical with typhoid. And you can have fatigue, headaches, abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, even diarrhea. These are the symptoms that one can present with one who has typhoid.
But you do know that most of these symptoms actually share same symptoms with other diseases as well.
Exactly. That is why the symptoms of typhoid fever are not specific. Yeah, they are not specific. So most other ailments can present with this, but then there's something about this stepladder fever and then there is this thing that they call reduced pulse rate, that is relative bradycardia, and that happens only with typhoid fever. Ordinarily, when one has fever, you should have increased pulse rate, but with typhoid fever, you have what we call the temperature pulse imbalance, right? So you have high fever with relative bradycardia.
All right, let's move to our next question. Now, I'd like to know, what is the most acceptable test for typhoid fever?
Okay. An array of tests that you can use to diagnose typhoid fever there is stool culture, there is wider test that is not really a diagnostic test, but the most acceptable is blood culture.
Blood
Culture.
culture. Okay, blood culture. That's the most acceptable test for
Yeah, that is
typhoid
the most
fever.
acceptable
Just
test.
learned another one. So a lot of persons usually say that they have typhoid fever and malaria. So I would like you to inform us. Do you think typhoid fever is as common as malaria in our environment today?
Okay, like I said, typhoid fever, in as much as it is common, it is not as common as malaria. That is because we live in the malaria endemic society, like the Nigeria, the rainforest, we are malaria endemic because we have mosquitoes, especially the female anopheles mosquitoes everywhere. But typhoid fever, like I already said, that it is common in areas with poor access to good water and good sanitation because it's a food waterborne disease.
Okay, so we also like to know what are the common and uncommon complications of this disease?
Okay, the complications of typhoid fever are enormous, and they occur usually at the distal end of this ailment if left untreated. That is at the later end of this ailment if left untreated. And most of them there is what we call damage to the intestinal wall, which can cause bleeding into the intestine. There could also be death of the cells of the large intestine and the small intestine. And the death of these cells can lead to contents of the gut leaking out into the bloodstream and into the gut system itself, and that is into the abdominal cavity itself. And this will lead to abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, and of course, general body infection, right? That is generally called sepsis. Now, later on, there are more uncommon complications like kidney diseases, yes, kidney failure. You can have infection of the heart, myocarditis, endocarditis, and of course, there can even be liver failure from this, yes.
All right, so lastly, before we let you go, you know, a lot of persons, when they have malaria or whatever disease, they just immediately go straight to self-medication. They just rush and start taking medications without proper investigation to know whether or not this is the actual disease I'm supposed to treat. So do you think it is okay for people to just go straight to treating typhoid without proper investigation?
Well, the gospel of self-medication can never be stopped. It is very, very inappropriate for one to self-medicate, especially when it has to do with typhoid. Because you see most people, when they feel they have headaches, they have weakness, they tell themselves that they have typhoid and malaria. Yes. Okay. And then they will start taking in anti-malaria and even antibiotics. The reason is because you can cause what we call antibiotics resistance. And then when you contract this infection itself, the antibiotics that is needed to, treat this infection will no longer be effective because you have already, abused these antibiotics.
So you said, sorry, you said antibiotics resistance. Can you please educate us on that? What does that mean, please?
Okay, that's what it means is when you are consuming antibiotics for no justifiable reason, the body builds immunity against that specific antibiotic, and that will make that antibiotic not to function effectively when consumed.
Wow, so much for us to learn today. I think I've actually learned enough. I believe that the viewers have also learned so much today. But just before we let you go, is there any thing you'd like to say shortly before we let you go to our viewers?
All right. The only thing I like to say is that there is nothing as typhoid and malaria. If you have any symptom of any illness whatsoever, you have headache, you have feeling of tiredness, and you don't even understand your body system any longer, you should speak to your doctor. Or if possible, get to a nearby hospital for a total body workup. Your doctor will see you, assess you, and ask you to do some investigation in line with what your presentation is. And with that, you will avoid so many problems, including antibiotic resistance.
Okay.
Thank you.
But that's it on the show. We've come to the end of today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and of course follow us on our different social media platforms. My name remains Cyril Aloysius, and if you have any questions on this particular topic, do want to drop them in the comment section and we'll be happy and ready to answer to them. Until next time, bye for now and stay out of trouble.